Hello everyone. Today we are going to be talking about floating resorts or cruise ships. Cruise ships are known as floating resorts because they have all of the same components that a resort would have. However, of course, they are floating on the sea. Now, you are probably most familiar with the Titanic. It is it's not necessarily a cruise ship, but probably one of the most famous ships that you're most familiar with, that of course left the UK in 1912 and unfortunately did not manage to get to New York as intended. But that really pales in comparison to the cruise ships of today. So today the Symphony of the Seas is considered the world's largest cruise ship. It is the 25th ship in Royal Caribbean's fleet. It is significantly larger in terms of tons. It's about it's over a quarter of a million gross registered tons. It's 238 feet tall and almost 1,200 feet long, and it can carry roughly 5,500 guests in double occupancy, but many people will actually be in cabins of more than double occupancy. Now, to give you an idea as to how the Titanic compares to the Symphony of the Seas, as you can see there, it really does pale in comparison. Now, let's talk about the largest cruise companies. Okay, so first of all, we do have Carnival over here, and Carnival owns a number of different brands. Now, of course, their largest brand is their Carnival line. Okay, so about 22% of passengers do cruise on the Carnival line. Royal Caribbean is one of the other large parent brands, and naturally the Royal Caribbean brand within that line, that also carries a number of people, so about 19% of all passengers. And then Norwegian is the other large parent brand. Again, their Norwegian line does make up just under 10% of all of the people who cruise. So if we take a look over here, this is Royal Caribbean's main brand. This is Carnival Cruise Line's main brand. And then these are some of the other brands within those parent companies. Okay, and as you can see, when we're talking about total passengers, we do have lots of people who are actually in those companies, riding with those different cruise lines. Now, to give you an idea as to passenger capacity, again, here are our parent companies, and then here are the various different brands. So Carnival brand within the Carnival Cruise Line has about 26 ships. Royal Caribbean, again within the Royal Caribbean parent brand, has another 26. And then you can see the Norwegian lines down here. And then again, in terms of how many people they can actually carry. So this is Royal Caribbean's brand. This is Carnival's brand. So the Royal Caribbean brand can actually carry about 85,000 people. The Carnival brand can actually carry about 71,000 passengers. So obviously quite a few there. Now, let's see, we have, in terms of the cruise industry, we do have a lot of different cruise areas where people are sailing to. By far, the Caribbean tends to be most popular, okay? So as you can see, we don't have 2019 data yet, but the Caribbean has traditionally always been the largest and most popular region. You can see that Asia and Asia Pacific in the last 5 years has almost doubled, okay? So that is certainly something to keep in mind. And as you can also see, the Mediterranean has gone down a bit, and that is because a lot of people are coming over to Asia and Asia Pacific. So it's certainly growing in there. Now, again, in terms of where people are coming from, North America, most popular, as well as a number of people coming from Europe as well. But overwhelmingly, more than half of cruise passengers worldwide are coming from North America. And that's a big part of why the Caribbean is so popular. So to give you some ideas as to actual cruise industry statistics, the industry makes a lot of money, okay? Nearly $40 billion in revenue. And we have about 27 million people cruising annually. And this is occurring over and over again because it does have about 5% annual growth. Most of these cruise ships, now first of all, these cruise companies have ordered a lot of new ships to be built over the next several years, okay? So as you can see, another $65 billion in ships has been ordered over the next 10 years. Most of these cruise ships are getting bigger and going to more and more popular destinations. Now, most cruise ships actually operate at over 100% capacity. So as I was saying with Symphony of the Seas, if we're looking at double occupancy, they can hold about 5,500 passengers. However, cruise ships typically operate at about 103 to 105% capacity, and that's because even though a cabin is typically considered a double occupancy cabin, with children, with extended families, with balconies and larger cabins, you may often have multiple people beyond simply that double occupancy. So Cruise Line International Association is the organization which really rules the cruise lines internationally, and so they do a lot with putting policies in place for how things should occur, getting ports to accept new cruise ships. They certainly do a lot with marketing, and it used to be that the cruise industry was known as newlywed and nearly dead. So people who were either on honeymoons or were quite old and therefore unable to travel by plane, and so this was an easy way for them to travel. That has really changed a lot. You have a lot of themed cruises, you have lots of family cruises, you have cruise lines such as the Disney Cruise Line, which really does focus on families. So the makeup of people and the types of customers has changed significantly over the years. Now, when we're looking at actual revenue per passenger, here is actually where it's going to. Now, a lot of cruise ships and cruise lines, they don't make a lot of their money by selling the ticket to get on the cruise. They make a lot of their money through things like alcohol. They make quite a bit of their money through selling things like shore excursions. A number of companies now own their own private islands, which is excellent because now when the cruise passengers go into port, every single thing, if they go into a private island owned by the cruise company, then every single thing that they spend money on that island goes right back to the cruise company. But to give you some idea as to where that revenue per passenger goes, as you can see, some of it is profit, about 19-20% of it is profit, quite a bit, about 13% goes into marketing and administration. We certainly do have operating expenses, payroll, other onboard expenses. Fuel is about 7.5%. So this just gives you a bit of an idea as to how that money is spent, how that revenue is spent. Now, there are a few things that you should be familiar with. One is what we call flags of convenience. So very few ships are registered in the US or the UK or Australia. Most ships are registered in foreign countries. And about 3/4 of ships are flagged in either the Bahamas, Liberia, or Panama. The reason the cruise companies, now of course the big three, so Norwegian, Carnival, and Royal Caribbean, to a large extent, their biggest headquarters are actually in Miami. However, they flag their ships outside of the US. And the reason that they do this is because if they are flagged in another country, then they follow that other country's laws. So that means they are not paying high income taxes. They don't have to follow other laws, such as laws on crime reporting or labor laws. So that's why if you look at the types of people who are working on cruise ships, many of them may not speak English. They hire very few Australians, Americans, Europeans, because Australians expect to get paid, $25 an hour, if not more. And most people on a cruise ship do not get paid anywhere near that. Most people who work on cruise ships, they work every single day. They work very long hours. They get very little time off, and they are not paid a lot. And a lot of times they're considered to be human rights violations. So by flagging a ship in Australia, they would have to, the cruise ship would have to follow all Australian laws. So instead, they don't flag the ships here, they flag them in other countries, and so they don't have to worry so much about following those laws so strictly. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention to you was marketing and distribution. So there's always been lots of talk about travel agencies and why are there still travel agencies. To a large extent, cruise lines really use travel agencies to source their reservations. So there's a very strong dependence between cruise lines and travel agencies. So that they have really helped one another stay in business. A lot of people who cruise, they cruise over and over and over again. So things like relationship marketing is really very important to them. They also offer very elaborate and competitive offerings. Let me just show you this slide or this commercial showing you some of the very interesting and exciting things that cruise ships offer. Now, as you can see, the cruise industry, cruise lines are offering more and more different activities that people can do while they're on their cruise vacations. They are using more ports that are closer to metropolitan areas so that it's easier for people to get on and off of them. And the cruise season used to be very seasonal, but instead cruise seasons are much longer. So they'll be in the Caribbean, which of course is typically always summertime, but they'll be in the Mediterranean during the summer. They'll move to Australia during our summer. And of course, offering things like more overnights in popular cities, late night departures, all kinds of diversity in cruise themes. However, the cruise industry is very volatile, as we have seen recently. So with regard to how this plays out in the future, it certainly will be interesting and something that we will need to keep an eye on.